This is like the 5th take. Let's see if we can get this down. I'm going to be talking about 4 MDR headphones from Sony in the 80s and 90s. We're going to be talking about the V4s, the V5s, the V7s, and also the very popular 7506s. Let's start off with the V4s. These headphones are an on-ear design with a 30mm driver inside. It does have this metal backing that kind of surrounds the driver, and then this plastic lip that goes on the outside. The termination of the cable on the exterior is very interesting. It shares the same design between itself, the V6, and also the 7506s, where it has the cable that runs through the headband and all that kind of stuff, which is similar amongst all the MDR designs, but it does also have this little notch here to hug and hold and secure the wire, and then it goes directly into the side of the cup. Now, what's very noticeable about the V4s is that the color of the metal when shining or reflecting light off is actually kind of like a brown color. The V4s also have this specific sticker font and also format that says for digital. That is very similar to, I believe, the V7s. The contour, as you can see right here on the bottom portion, although it's not as noticeable, just know that may do something with the acoustics of the headphones and the sound signature, but it kind of rubs down a little bit, rounds off there at the edge, and it's completely flat, and it does have this grill design that does let sound go through. Sound signature wise, and a few things on specs. Very nice and bright headphones. Some attenuation in the mid-range. I've listened to a lot to Slow by Yu-Utsu and also Michael Jackson's Rock With You on Spotify. The V4s, I'd never heard this pitch bend around 120 on Slow. Very much comes through. So the mid-range has some attenuation compared to the 7506 that, it has a little bit more in there. I wasn't ever able to hear that pitch bend before. It is not too aggressive on the highs, so it's not too fatiguing to listen to. In terms of other build nuances, R and L respectively are red and blue, and it also has this seam of the band for the leather on the inside, which is very interesting in terms of the design choices. Very light headphones, comes with a coiled cable, and also a silver connector with a little metal sheath here to protect it, and also if you find these, it should come with a 1/4-inch adapter. Very wonderful headphones for on the go. That's literally where I would leave them. Bring them for on the go. They do fold in, which is a very nice design, and typically would come with a travel bag, but if you're going to be using these headphones, I would totally suggest to bring a hard case. Here's the bag that it would come in. So even for it being adjusted to my head size, it should all still fit in this little bag here. Let's move on to the V5s. I wanted to mention a little bit of those build nuances because it is very important to point out that all these headphones have some nice qualities to them, whether or not it's the sound or the build quality, but it doesn't the good parts don't carry on. So let's just straight up talk about the cable first. It is a straight cable, something that for people that are on the go would really appreciate and enjoy compared to the coiled cable of the V4. But the one thing is that they did not add that metal sheathing to protect the cable here at the end, and it does though, however, come with a gold-plated 1/4-inch adapter and a 3mm headphone jack. Very weird design choices there. The contour here is actually very, very similar. A little bit of a rounding here at the bottom, but then you'll notice here on the grill that there is actually this little kind of like dip, and that dip is specifically on the grill. The font and stuff has changed in terms of location, and also the picture or the sticker says for digital, but it has a different formatting and font. Termination of the cables on the outside, very similar design, but not quite. It does have this protruding cable on both the left and right, so it goes through the headband and hits the drivers. But as you see here, it goes right into the inside, and then right in terms of the terms of the hanger here, the hanger now has this little cutout, so the cable runs straight through there and it terminates inside of the driver, or of the cup sideways that way. Just so you guys know, when I was listening to these headphones, particularly the V4s and the V5s do have new sets of pads on them, and they're the exact same. But if you can tell from the headband, these were barely used, and the V4s they've had their fair share of usage. Whether or not that plays a role in how they sound, you be the judge. But I'm gonna say it right now, these are bassy. Very, very bassy. Lots of low end, a little bit muddy for my taste, and it kind of seeps into the mid-range a little bit. But, however, it does still have that attenuation on the highs, and I was still able to hear that pitch bend at 120, but around 38 seconds, we're talking about Slow by Yu-Utsu. In that song, that bass kind of drop that kind of comes in, very prominent in this compared to the V4s. Some small other design nuances is that on the V5s it will say digital monitor but in gold, compared to it being in silver on the V4s. And also the sticker and font position for the labels of the headphones are also completely different too. As you can see, the location for where it says studio or dynamics stereo headphones for the V4s, it's on the bottom of the grill compared to the V5s where they're at the top of the grill. And also another design choice that was different that is shared between itself and the V7s is that it's gold R and gold L instead of it being red and blue. Now let's move on to the V7s. I love these headphones. Let's just go straight up to it, to that conclusion. If you want to have a pair of headphones that you're going to grab onto, listen to casually for music at home, I would recommend or throw a pair of V7s at you. These things are very, very warm. There's not a lot of bass compared to the V5s, not a lot of bass especially compared to the V4s, but it's still there. Very welcoming, very unintrusive, and the high end is not fatiguing at all to listen to, especially when you're listening to Slow. That song has a lot of these high ongoings and fancy stuff going on that just are very, very fatiguing on the ears the more and more you run through the song. But the V7s kind of dampen that, and overall, they're such a joy to use. Comparing the V7s and the 7506s to the V4s and V5s is a little bit unfair. These headphones are more for studio use, but they're a part of the same lineup. The MDR-V7s are a over-ear design, but I would say they're more hybrid. They're over-ear, but they do still touch your ear because of the very shallow padding. These are new pads compared to the 7506s, so take that in with a grain of salt, whatever I say. The design, again, of the protruding cables and termination is exactly the same as it is on the V5s. So the cable again runs through the headband and all that kind of jazz. But then, as you can see here, it does not have a notch. It goes directly straight into the hanger, and then from the hanger, it does have a little cutout so that the cable can run through there and then go into the side of the headphones. Very interesting fact is that the material that is used for the driver is not the same on the V7s like it is for the V6s, the 7506s, the V4s, and the V5s, and the CD900 STs. So this is a titanium driver. This is, of course, bigger than the V4 and V5s. It's at 40 millimeters instead of 30. I never mentioned frequency response, but just know that the V7s and the 7506s have a little bit more of a bigger range or wider range. And the font and styling for the sticker says 4 digital in this kind of style. Again, very similar to the V5s. And instead of it saying digital monitor, it says studio monitor on the top of the headband in gold. And I didn't mention this, but earlier when I was talking about the V4s and how it has the seams on the inside here of the headband, Onward, I did mention it, but yeah, it has the seams on the sides of the headbands instead. It feels a little bit more premium that way. A lot more heavier than the V5s and the V4s, but they're still very, very light compared to other sets of headphones that I've worn and used. Again, very warm. I love these things. Very, very rare though, compared to the V6s and 7506s. In that category, you're not gonna find V7s very easily, but if you do, pick them up. We're gonna be... Oh, I forgot to also mention the cable. The cable is straight, and it does, sadly, have no metal sheathing to protect it, but it does come gold-plated with a 1/4-inch adapter. Now we're going to finish this off with the 7506s. These things are heavy. They feel very hefty. They have almost everything that I would have wanted in the MDR lineup. Again, I am waiting for V2s, V6s that are working, and also CD900 STs before I make my final decision. But the 7506s, you can definitely tell from just picking them up and listening to them that these were definitely a studio or they were a industry standard for many decades and for good reasons. On-ear design, again, hybrid because it's a little bit shallow, so as soon as you have the pads worn out like on these babies, they'll be a little bit closer to your ear. Very fatiguing, high-end. That's something that's I don't know if people have complained about before, but it's very annoying. My voice is nasal and also very forward. In the microphones that I use, typically aren't the brightest, but the Shure SM5B is pretty bright, and the RA20 is pretty bright. So the sibilance on the high ends might be very disgusting and very sharp and piercing, and the 7506s, when you're live monitoring, you definitely hear that. Soundstage though, just like the V7s, they are very open compared to their other cousins in the lineup. Being on ear, you suffer from having a tighter soundstage, and even having them open back may not help with that case. These being over-ear headphones, bigger drivers, and whatever acoustics that's going on, it definitely is a lot more easier to kind of hear where everybody is in the spectrum. What is really nice about these headphones is that it does, I forgot to talk about the contour of that metal, but on the 7506s, it does adopt just strictly that round off on the bottom of the metal, and everything else is flat. The sticker says professional, and it has the same font design as the V4s. And it does have red and blue for R and L respectively, your right and left. It says studio monitor in gray or in silver on the top of the printing, and again, the termination is exactly the same as the V4s. So it's gonna have that protruding cable that connects both the drivers, and then it has this little notch here that then leads into the side of the cup that has right there, that little hole, and it goes directly in the cup. So again, I touched a little bit on the sound signature. I don't like the high end on this, but it definitely is very controlled on the low end, but it has a nice punchiness to it, so you know the kick drum is there in slow. You know that the bassist is playing in Rock With You. But for some reason, the mid-range is somewhat lacking because I didn't hear that pitch bend happen in Slow by Yu-Utsu around, again, the 1 minute 20 second mark. It is just really ridiculous that the V7s and the 7506s just didn't have that same attenuation as the on-ear headphones. Just so you guys know a little bit about the hardware I used when I was listening to the headphones, I did use a little splitter. This splitter is definitely going to affect the quality, so of course take that with a grain of salt. It's just a 1/4 inch male adapter with 2 female ins right there on the edges, or on the edges on the ends. And I just plugged 2 headphones at a time when listening to music, just to see, like, okay, you know, like, is there a difference and all that jazz. Yes, there is. Amongst all the headphones, albeit three of them have like the same material, and typically the design and all that stuff is very, very similar, especially between the V4s and V5s and the 7506s and the V7s. They do have different kinds of sound signatures. If you want to be very analytical, and you want to maybe hear certain details, on low end and on the high end, it's very articulate. The 7506s will be the reference headphones for you. They're still very common. You can find them on eBay used or at classifieds and stuff locally. Studios will have these. Professionals will have these. Semi-pros, doesn't really matter. These things are popular for many, many reasons amongst many Sony or audiophiles alike. Everybody knows about these headphones. The 7506s are the standard, and if you can pick one of these up for a reasonable price, especially used, they're very good. Again, they are being still made, and I'm gonna go on a whim here and say that they'll probably sound the same whether or not you get the old pair used or you get a new pair that is still in the making. V7s, you'll never find these ever again new. They're going to be used most likely unless someone kept them in the packaging, of course. Very rarely seen on eBay. I got lucky on a classifieds locally. They don't fold. They're not really good travel headphones, but again, just considering if you have a bag or a hard case, you can probably get away with it. Like these headphones, adjusted to my height, still fit in this bag. So yeah, if you want a headphone that's really good for casual listening use and all that kind of stuff, you might really enjoy the V7s. Just so that I feel complete, I forgot to mention the contour and stuff with the design of the cup. It does adopt the same little contour here as it's a V5 brother where the grill was. So that may affect acoustics, whatever that may be. And again, keep in mind that when I was listening to these headphones, this pad was new. The 7506's pads were used. So mileage may vary. But no, I still will stand behind these headphones as being one of my favorite headphones to listen to and have around my ears. V4s, pick these up if you want them for on the go. They're foldable. Again, questionable if you're going to be okay with a coiled cable. But man, these are flat-ish. They have a little bit of bass in there. They're not good at noise cancellation, but I mean, if you're going to be walking around or being in the car and stuff, you may want to hear things anyways. But definitely, if you blast these things, because they're so easy to drive at around 48 or 43 ohms, they're going to be a very good choice for on the go. And they're so tiny and light, you're not going to feel them on your head. V5s, that straight cable might make them more desirable, but you may want to mod them so that you can have them fold. They're just too bassy for me, for my liking. I don't like the V5s, but between the V5s and the V4s, they're not going to be too common. They're a little bit rare. You may or may not see them on eBay or on local classifieds, but if you do find them for a good price and at a decent quality, if they're very well taken care of, they're a steal for what they offer. I feel as though that the V5s and the V4s are definitely what the modern headphones should be right now. From the, I would say, the mid 2010s and up until now, Bose, Sony, and Skullcandy, all the headphones that they produce that are at the cheap and lower end, like the $20, $30 mark, these are what those headphones should have been. Bass heavy, yeah, you'll like it, but I mean, it's still got a little bit more, and it's got some character to it. Might be a little bit more expensive, these V4s, you know, but I mean, man, these would be like your Bose or your Sonys, your cheap Sonys, cheap Bose. They're relatively flat, a little bit of bass in there, but man, you're gonna still have a fun time. Very light headphones, really good, foldable again, so nice and easy, compact for on the go. I really wish that headphones nowadays still kind of followed that design, where it's like there's no difference between a V4, V5, and a V6 and V7, like between those two headphones, besides it being on-ear or over-ear. Like, the drivers are sure 10 millimeters difference in size, and they're also on-ear, over-ear again. Some fold, some don't. But man, they still sound very good, and they have that character. And the 7506 is again for mixing and mastering. Industry standard for a reason for almost 3 or 4 decades now. Pick these up if you can. I love these headphones, but I wouldn't listen to music casually with them. And finally, again, closing statements on the V7s. I love these things. Very warm, welcoming. There isn't a lot of bass, but it's perfect for my ears. It's perfect for the songs that I want to listen to. And again, when listening to slow and rock with you, it's just really nice to have that little extra angle or range in terms of the soundstage. And that higher frequency range also helps too. And they look very stylish. Very rare though, so if you find these, pick them up if they're a good price. That's really all I gotta say. Again, I think I've mentioned it already, but wait for an update video that I'll be posting that covers me talking a little bit of the CD 900 STs, a pair of MDR-V6s, and also a pair of MDR-V2s. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully this was clear and concise. My opinions on the MDR lineup from the 80s and 90s. These Sony headphones are amazing. Thanks for watching.